Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Live Feature Rant, featuring a few awesome folks from the community. We have up in the upper left corner, Oil. You might know him on Twitch here as Pirate Oil, many other names in other places. Not going to get into that, but he is one of the spaceship building, linking, and triggering experts that you might have seen some of his stuff recently. And then up above me here, Zekseidu, awesome person. You will probably see her with the green sword next to her name in a lot of channels on Twitch. Just a really awesome, vibrant member of the community. Just great to have you. And once again, an amazing linking and triggering experimenter. I really like the stuff that you've got going on. We checked it out on Sunday. Both of you, actually. And Dygz, on screen left, he is kind of filling in for Adam, who is doing some awesome stuff tonight. So, yes, Dygz is taking the slack. Of course, if you know anything about the forums, you know Dygz. So, all right. That being said, let me actually give all of you a chance to kind of introduce yourselves instead of me just be like, hey, this is who this person is. So I guess let's start counterclockwise. Let's start with you, Zach.
Hey, yeah, I'm Zekseidu. That's how you say my name. A lot of people have been wondering, so now that you can hear me say it, that's how you say it. I've been in Landmark since just before SOE Live last year. I do a lot of building, though I don't have a lot of finished projects. I'm really optimistic about my current sci-fi project right now.
It's pretty cool. All right, moving it along then. Oil, your turn.
My name is Oil. Random name that I picked just to see if the game would take it. I'm not overly happy with it, but that's what I go by now. So, Pirate Oil. I make spaceships in Landmark. What else? I've been in Landmark since maybe towards the middle, maybe the middle end of last year. My first SOE game, and extremely excited to it be with the community. It's the best people I've ever met by far.
For sure. And you, Dygz.
Let's see. I've been hanging out in the forums like usual, but playing in-game now that we've got some PvE in. And this past weekend, I just started with newbie progression. It was pretty fun, actually. I mean, kind of because I know I have some idea of the stuff that I should do, but the little tutorial was pretty helpful too. I got through all the tutorial stuff in about an hour. So it's pretty fun.
Nice. That's really cool. Very cool. So, we have, there was not a, okay, let me first start off. There was no Landmark Live this week. Everybody probably already knows that, because that would have been an hour ago and have been kind of the lead into the pre-show here. That obviously didn't happen this time because, everything's all H1Z1 over there, so all studios, all hands on deck for that. And that's totally cool. Like, I'm super stoked for H1Z1. But that's the show from yesterday. Anyway, the big thing that I'm really excited to talk about here is just how much we've already been able to start using the linking and triggering system that we have, and with the practical application of it, making things that look and feel really awesome and really believable. And both Oil and Zek have amazing builds that really demonstrate that very well. Oil's got not one but two ships. Actually, you've also got a little escape pod thing, don't you?
That was actually, excuse me, Herc Hammerstone designed the body of that ship based on the head of the Juggernaut, and I did most of the prop work on it, and then he kind of took it from there and refined it and made it what it was. So that's actually his. So
absolutely. Yeah, and that was pretty cool too. But the stuff that you've done is really it's such an amazing feat, because that and some of the other ships that we've seen, Bob Dobb's ship, the giant engine that was that Ajor? I can't remember.
Ajor, yeah, Ajor, big engine.
That's the one. So that, and some other stuff like that. You made the point on content and creations that we can actually make a functional, believable spaceship in Landmark specifically because it's something that you can make that doesn't have to work with the ground, that doesn't have to interface with the ground at all. It's something that can be fully separate, be its own entity, and with the ability to use linking and triggering to bring life to it and do a lot of amazing stuff with it. It's the ability to basically create an environment completely removed from the terrain itself that's truly engaging for players. That to me is amazing. That's a huge development for the game. And whether or not we needed linking and triggering to make it happen, and whether or not we needed the sci-fi props and all the stuff that we have now to make it happen, we've got it all now, and it's happening, and it's awesome.
Yeah, the thing that inspires me about sci-fi is, when I first came to the game, saw stuff from Bob Daub, from Shatari, from Ajor, stuff at Sci-Fi Bay, and it's, man, there's so much cool stuff in game, from the ogre builds to the castles to, I don't want to put any names out there really because there's so many cool things, and I don't really want to spotlight anybody because I can't name everybody. There's just so much good stuff.
Right.
But sci-fi to me is, it's the next frontier. It's kind of the next. You see a lot of other space games coming out. I really feel that it's kind of the next trend in games. Like zombies have been for the past however long. But what's fun for me about sci-fi is that when you make a spaceship, it can be anything. Star Trek, proved that with the Borg and a cube. So it can be anything. It's in space. It doesn't have to abide by gravity, or air. It doesn't have to have wings. It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to have all the stuff that we see in flight. It can really be anything that you want it to be. And the stuff that we do have in game works great for what it does need, in thrusters and that kind of stuff. And so it allows, for me, I think it allows people to be more creative in a way that they might not otherwise be able to be creative. And then there are some people who currently are concerned about mobs coming onto their claim and attacking them. Build a spaceship.
That's one way to do it. All right. So, Zek and Dygz, I want to hear from both of you, whoever wants to jump in first. Your thoughts on kind of the spaceship as not necessarily a paradigm for building, but as one of the models of kind of a new way or a kind of a different way to build to engage things differently in Landmark.
Go for it, Zach.
Thanks. I'm just thinking, it's definitely different because everything that we've built so far, like even with the workshop, it's on the ground. But I think exploration-wise of Landmark, definitely being able to run around and look up and like, whoa, what the heck is that? And like with Oil Ship, this is incredible. You could just spend hours in there clicking like crazy and exploring. You can definitely get yourself lost in it, literally and more figuratively exploring. It definitely can kind of become a new definition of what's possible.
For sure.
Yeah, I think we don't have enough sci-fi props. I think they're still kind of too heavily focused on fantasy, and I'd like to see more sci-fi stuff come in. But I can wait. I'm patient. It's okay. But the cool thing about linking and triggering with sci-fi and going into ships is, I don't know, maybe just from Star Trek, I'm used to having lights blinking on and off, something having it be active. So that's kind of the nice thing about having that addition. And of course, being able to have jet firing from the back and all kinds of stuff. I think, I don't know, to me, we probably almost expect sci-fi builds to be doing something. I mean, not something grand, but a little bit different than just sitting there like you would walk through a castle. You don't necessarily care if there's a fire in the fireplace or not, but you expect to see lights or moving doors and all that stuff. So the more triggering we have, I think that just brings more grandeur to the sci-fi builds, and that's cool. I mean, we can do stuff with lucite too. We don't necessarily have to have a ton of props, but hopefully, this means that we're ready to move more towards sci-fi in 2015.
Well, and I think, and he's absolutely right, but I think that what it comes down to is that a science fiction build simply allows for more interactivity from the player. And that's really, a lot of us have been in many games, and you go in something and you can't interact with it. And for me, it's just, it takes a little bit away from it. And so what Landmark is giving us with the emitters and linking and triggering, and even just a few amount of props we have, there's crazy stuff going on with just a few amount of props we have. But it just makes a more fun environment, and that's not to take anything away from castles or any of the other stuff. And I think also humans are innately fascinated with robots, with machines, with the future, and sci-fi is the future. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of different flavors of it. There's everything from like the Tekhenaten or whatever, the almost space Egyptian stuff that's just near Sci-Fi Bay. That's one take on it. I have some of my stuff from Alpha that if I build it out, it would be a completely like a whole divorce from all stuff that we've currently seen in Sci-Fi. Or I could do one of my crazy line tool only builds and just use glass and ice the entire way through, and it's just going to look Sci-Fi by the end just because of the nature of it. I really should do that. It's been a while since I've done one of those. They're so fun. I challenge any builder out there, do a line tool only. Just fill one claim. Do something with it. Don't care if things aren't even. Don't use delete. Don't use area tool. Don't use anything else. Just use the line tool. Have a blast with it. It's so fun. So I didn't mean to derail there, but the fact that sci-fi is starting to really emerge is a big thing, and the props is definitely a big deal. I mentioned in chat there that laser emitters are on the list. I talked to Dave Georgeson about that. He said that there's going to be some sci-fi stuff coming, and laser emitters. It might not be sooner, it might be later. Who knows? It might be hailing the incoming laser pistol weapons that may come later down the road. Who knows? And I want those too. That's something else. Like, it's great that we're getting all of the assets that are going into EverQuest Next because they're already rigged up and set to use. But I'm looking for someone to stay a few hours, a few nights, and it's like, all right, well, I made something that's kind of similar to a Star Trek phaser, but just not close enough for us to get sued for it, and put it in the game, and it's gonna be awesome. I don't know if that sort of thing would happen, but I'd love to see that. But anyway, I am ranting here.
You're supposed to rant. That's why you made the show.
Well, I one of the things actually I kind of wanted to bring up is the idea that there's been kind of a lull in the action, and that's why sci-fi has been able to pop up as it is. The ogre stuff has basically been on lockdown since last year. People's builds are starting to open up again because they've all opened up again now because the judging is finally over and we got the results, and I still haven't gotten a chance to look through it all, but I'm probably going to do a full tour of the Foundation museum or whatever once it's up, because I'm sure that's going to be amazing stuff. But with that lull in the action, people have been looking for things to do. I know some people have been working on the dwarf stuff. I know some people have been kind of fine-tuning some of their ogre stuff even. But a lot of people, it's just been, well, now that there's nothing that we're being asked to build, I'm just going to build what I want to build. So it seems like it's almost the natural place for people to start finally working on sci-fi, because even the Ruin stuff didn't really sound like massive sci-fi influence was what they were necessarily looking for with it. So yeah, defense work the dwarf stuff for sure. I mean, I've seen a lot of amazing stuff of all the different things, but I would say the kind of this reemergence of the interest in sci-fi, more than just the stuff that we were seeing at Sci-Fi Bay and in a few other small congregated areas, but that everybody's going to start really getting into it a little bit. And on that, I'm going to kind of throw out your way, Zek, because you made a really awesome build that it's not a spaceship, but it's instead like like some sort of weird military compound or something that's. It almost reminds me of something out of Doom with that skull and the moving doors or whatever. It's really awesome work. I love it. So
I'm not sure if you had a
yeah,
question.
I was thinking of what I wanted to actually ask about, and that's basically what inspired you to start working on it now at this particular time. Was it specifically that linking and triggering came in, or were you working on like the ogre builds and stuff like that in the past?
Okay. I've been kind of working on, gosh, piece by piece, a generic kind of traditional cottage that I would otherwise expect to come across in Landmark. And for a long time, I could only work on it a few hours at a time, but because I'm a full-time student.
Wait, does that mean fantasy? Was it a fantasy cottage or just non genre or what? What you said
I would
typical of
say,
Landmark, but I don't know what that is.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I meant, what I meant, kind of a little bit medieval.
Okay.
Cottage, stucco, wood beams, that kind of thing. And I spent a lot of time working on it. It was just one claim, but I was very determined to use voxelmancy to get some really cool effects. And I made a lot of progress. It's more or less done. There's still some fine tuning, but I'm like, I've been working on this thing for 3 months, like 2 and 3 hours here between classes, after class, and keeping some just ridiculous hours trying to do it. I'm like, I want to look at something else now. And then this entire time I've been trying to scrounge up some ideas for Player Studio. I've gotten myself into Player Studio, and I just keep getting these amazing ideas for sci-fi themed props. And I'm like, so I'm just looking around, and one day, just the kind of like the two thoughts kind of like merged together in my head, and I'm like, why haven't I seen any sci-fi homes? I'm sure they're out there, but they don't seem to really exist. Everything I've seen that's sci-fi is either like a ship or like just this massive complex that is like 4x4 claims larger now that we've got more claim space, but everything's just so incredibly huge. I'm like, I want to see what you can do that's a little smaller, because I've only got a month to play with here. So I was like, okay, let's see if I can pull off a sci-fi themed home. So basically what I've got rocking out on, I think, Lava Tube Beach somewhere, is a home that is somewhat industrial looking, kind of, but what I've got going on is a little bit of linking, triggering, a bathroom. I've got going in is my current section that I'm working on. I've got a bedroom in. I've got and triggering done with this skull on a tower that runs through the entire thing. That as you walk around it, the skull kind of like follows you. It looks like it's watching you the whole way around. The idea is that the whole complex will be run by a computer system. I've got some great ideas about lights, moving parts, and everything, but it would definitely be a lot easier with those sci-fi props. So I'm just thinking that it would probably, for the time being, I can work with some voxelmancy tricks to make some furniture, like what some of the tutorials and stuff, like hanging out with Infinity of Light. I definitely picked up a few tricks there that it seems to work, because blocky looking furniture is kind of modern-ish and it works.
Yeah. Yeah, something I've been wondering about is if anybody's going to be able to pull off a reasonably sized one of those, egg-shaped chairs. The ones I'm talking about. Because that seems like that's a really difficult shape to have look clean. And then I was thinking, well, hell, if they gave it to us as a prop, we could do amazing stuff with it. It's got so many angles you can do stuff with. It's, there's a lot of stuff that could probably be used for. Or if you just want to, you just kind of stick two of them together and you've got an egg. Whatever, there's a lot of things that could be done with that. But
well, and when players get the what are they calling that thing? The voxel engine that'll let us make props out of voxels. Man, this game's going to be crazy. I mean, yes, because everything that people are wanting right now that doesn't exist is going to be made. And from what I understand, we are going to be allowed to attach emitters to the prop, and motion to the prop. So, man, it's going to get insane. Landmark is going to get crazy cool.
Yes, that's when is really. I think that's when Player Studio is really going to take off too. The ability to so let me explain for anybody who's not familiar. Basically, the concept is they're going to give us the ability to take a creation made with voxels, convert it into a mesh. That mesh is then scalable, and when it is rescaled to whatever size you need, the texture will intelligently resize with it. So if you want to make a really fancy chair where all the pieces of wood are a little bit, off and uneven and weird, and maybe it wouldn't be fancy, but maybe like rickety and like Karen-like perhaps, you would make all the different pieces how you want individually, probably in a much larger size, then convert them to a mesh, shrink them down, and place them together until you've got whatever you like for the shape of the chair, and then that you would be able to convert into a prop of its own, essentially giving you the ability to create your... Is it me talking with my hands that's making you laugh? Okay. Giving you the ability...
It's not hard to make me laugh, sorry.
Okay.
It's chat. Daniel.
Yeah, making our own props. That's basically the end game of it, and that's big time because we'll pretty much have the ability to do whatever we need to do within some amount of reasonability. I don't know if we'll be able to use anything that we build outside of our claims or listed on Player Studio or anything without a lot of approvals, because I could see it being easy for someone to make really, really offensive props and then try to distribute them. So there would have to be some way to limit that sort of activity. Probably not a lot of it, but it's going to be free to play at some point, and weird people come in when games go free to play sometimes. So we have to expect a little bit of that. So once we have the ability to do that, though, yeah, the sky's the limit. We'll be able to make all sorts of stuff, and I believe one of the things that's in the plan is being able to actually make those spaceships usable. Being able to actually take what oil is made, take the Juggernaut, take the Mantis, and basically attach movement controls, piloting controls to it, and maybe attach some more advanced weapon systems that actually they're actual guns instead of just levers that point up and down. And make a real battleship out of it and actually be able to fly that around in Landmark and shoot people and fight other battleships with it. That's
Man,
super exciting.
yeah, and when that happens, I mean, the physics and stuff, I mean, that's way down the road if it happens, but that stuff, being able to take, and I think that's where PvP is really going to take off, is it's one thing to play with your guy and doing your thing, or your girl or whatever, but it's another thing to make a creation and have it work and have that function as your gun or as your weapon. And when it can be a spaceship or some land vehicle, I mean, that's just, people have been dreaming about this for a long, long time, and so if they can make that happen, it's it's going to get cool, very cool.
Okay, this is a classic D&D campaign. The idea of the living castle. It takes residence in some area. It expects somebody to walk in, and once they go far enough that they think they're at the treasure point, all the traps spring, the place comes to life, and basically it tries to trap them and eat them alive.
I would love that. Indiana Jones claim. Yeah, somebody's got to do that.
That to me would be just fantastic, and that's the sort of weird, amazing stuff I imagine people will be doing with linking and triggering. It's like, wait a minute, that's not claimable land where that... What the hell is going on? I'm gonna go in, and then they go in, and then to the graveyard. I wonder if we're gonna actually have the ability to create things that kill you so hard that it just forces you to go to the graveyard. It's like, no, you're dead. Your body's been eliminated. Bye-bye.
Can't come back. Yep.
I'm wondering if we will be able to add story bricks to linking and triggering and, vehicles. I mean, what's the difference between a tank and a mount?
Actually, I really hope that's the case, because then linking and triggering with story bricks would allow for factional door systems. Like, I think of PlanetSide 1, for example. If it was your faction's base, you could walk freely through the doors. They would open and close for you. But if you're the enemy faction, you actually had to hack the doors open. There was a panel next to the door you actually had to hack before you'd be able to get in and out. So I could see, that sort of thing, that, identify friend or foe sort of stuff on doorways and other systems that uses story bricks, basically, and depending on what colors you're representing, what armor and gear and faction that you're a part of, you're going to be able to access some things, or a laser's going to try to shoot you in the face for it. They didn't have that in PlanetSide 1, but they should have. So, I mean...
All games should have things shot in the face.
Yeah. More fantasy games probably need to have it. Just like some sort of laser of light. Ha, you shall not pass. All right. So that's, that would be really nice to see. And I really hope that Storybricks does have integration with linking and triggering. I guess the other thing, for me, that's phase 3 of linking and triggering, because we still need phase 2 of linking and triggering, which is logic systems. And it's a combination of giving us more UI functionality and stuff, as well as giving us possibly more props. Right now, we don't have something that functions as a counter, like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, something that actually ticks through the numbers. So anybody who wants a number, they have to do it manually. And it's a hell of a process. I have mad respect for the people that do, but I'd rather not mess with that sort of stuff. I'd rather just have a counter. If I want to make like a, something that looks like an old-timey alarm clock, just a really, really big one, just being able to have the little numbers that flip as they, as it ticks over, or something that looks more like a modern digital alarm clock, or a wristwatch, or whatever someone would want to do it for, or a timer on something that's going to go boom, like I'm sure Frigo Porco is going to do, because that's just his style. And then, being able to put further considerations on it, like if it's the hour marker that you only have 0 to 6 enable, or, not hour, minute, 0 to 5 enabled, rather. And then when it hits, what would be 60, it instead clicks over to the next one. Being able to add that sort of logic into timers would be really, really fantastic. So I guess with that in mind, what's the sort of stuff you would want to see, either props or functionality or features or even UI elements, to kind of be a part of the next implementation, the next phase of linking and triggering going in? Let's go kind of around the table. Zek, let's start with you.
Okay. I would say I was just playing with some linking and triggering last night. I was having some trouble, and I was like, how do I make this happen? And then I realized that to do it, I'd have to break every link I made so far and start fresh by adding in just one more switch. It's very frustrating. And I think something that should definitely be included would be some way to break all of your current links within a selected area, so that, like, if you do want to start fresh in a particular room, it's not so hard to do. That would definitely be one thing. Beyond that, more kinds of objects that could be used as switches that actually look like switches, instead of having to, like, flip a candle on end and say, oh, look, I've got a green button.
Yes, I've seen many
Actual buttons.
Many colorful buttons.
Yeah. Just buttons, switches, little doodads, things that kind of...
Yeah, things that aren't light sources that have just a quick on-off, for sure. I agree.
Yeah, because, without that extra oomph to, like, thoroughly separate light from going from room to room, using candles as switches is kind of tricky to pull off if you want to stick it in the wall, so...
It is, and every light source is a high-impact sort of thing. They're not as bad if it's area lights that are, or not area lights, spotlights that are contained in a completely different room. the highlights from that aren't going to shine through all the walls. But I can't remember who coined the phrase polished obsidian. Oh, that's a light orb finder. It's because the light orbs, the highlights basically shine off of everything. Any reflective surface, it's going to catch it regardless. So I believe candles are the same way too, because it's just an area light. So it does create a lot of challenges being able to limit the light pollution in an area and limit the hindrance of frame rate if you've got a lot of buttons and stuff that are basically light sources. So that's, definitely getting normal switches, or like I could see things that are kind of luminous but don't put off a light, like a glow in the dark switch or something. Just simple things for sure. Just a standard bathroom outlet sort of light switch for the more modern appliance set of things. There's a lot of different stuff they could do.
Definitely, yeah. I just thinking that some of the current sci-fi props, not that there's a whole lot to choose from, but like the control panels, for example, some of them look like you should be able to use linking and triggering with them, but you can't.
Yeah.
So you have to. So I mean, that's kind of something. Yeah, more cool switchy thingies with bright shinies on it that we can actually link and trigger with. That would be great.
Absolutely. Would you also want to see a little bit more of that in the non-sci-fi area too, or I guess those will probably come in over time, huh?
Yeah, I would say so. Definitely. Again, what I'm working on right now is my first sci-fi build. I was like, you know what? I'm getting too many sci-fi ideas to not just roll with it. So, but yeah, definitely other genres of building. Definitely incredibly impressive work out there by a lot of builders, and I would love it to see that amplified by more linking and triggering props other than lighting.
I can think of one right off the top of my head. Brass gears. Various different sizes of brass gears for the people that want to do steampunk builds. Because that basically, between that and the emitters that we have, pretty much brings, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, that little bay that had all the steampunk stuff. I should remember this. I visited there a few times. Anyway, it'll probably come to me at some point. But, there's a lot of steampunk stuff that exists out there. And it would basically, that small detail would be enough to really bring it through. Or the giant clock builds that we saw. One of the landmarks of Landmark is a giant clock tower. Well, I hope they give the builder an opportunity to revise it once we've got the props to actually make it move and work and do awesome stuff. Because it maybe feel a little bit weird for it not to once we have linking and triggering in place. So one thing I wanted to ask about with the kind of changing and breaking the links that you were talking about, would you want to have that as like a variation on the selection tool to be able to select which ones you want to break the links on? Or would you rather have it maybe come up with some sort of a menu interface that allows you to select, which props, or select an area and then see in a menu which props you have selected? Do you have any preference or any ideas on that?
I would say a variation on the selection tool, because just looking at some of the links, I'm sure if I really got to know my build, I could just look at a menu, see those little numbers like after like red light orb and then that number. I could probably learn my build really well if I wanted to. But for people just getting started, I think being able to select an area and say, okay, I want all links in this area of selection to be broken, or be able to just disable a certain links, like disable all on links, or disable all, or break all, or break all off links, or something like that.
Gotcha. And yeah, that's, thinking about it, another thing that I really would love to have is the ability to rename or relabel a prop once we put it down. So that way when we're trying to do linking and triggering with it, instead of light orb 57,926,000, instead you can say orange light orb, room A, array 2, or whatever, and which specifically what room it's in, what part of what array it is, and it makes it a lot easier when you're trying to look through a list this big, this big. It really makes things a lot easier to actually identify things by labels that you've created. I imagine trying to work through Photoshop or Illustrator and not renaming any of the layers and anything that I'm working with. Yeah, it's terrible. Every artist, you don't even have to be an artist to wince at that. It's a terrible thought. So that's basically what we've got going right now with the props. It's maybe not that bad because we have a little bit more visual reference of where everything's at, but it's really tough. It's sometimes I have actually had to write down numbers of which ones were which feels weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess Oil, your thoughts before asking about the kind of systems and stuff that you would want. Just your thoughts on the how would you want to have a system for managing your links and being able to break them and merge them with another object or any of that sort of stuff.
Well, I mean, that's obviously a lot of UI work, but as far as breaking them, I think that it's we're used to using the selection tool to select a group of things. I think it makes sense to be able to select the props within an area and then give command, to break or whatever. I think it would be nice if the menu would stay up there, and when you're clicking from one prop to the next, that you don't have to open it up every time. Right-click, link, and so on and so forth. And basically have a final OK button to shut it out. I think that would help some. But I'm getting to the point with the simple stuff, just if this opens or if this is on, that opens. If this is off, that closes, that type of thing. I'm going through that really quick now, so it's not not annoying me as much as it used to. And if they left it like that, I'd be fine with it. But yeah, I do think that being able to break many links at once would be helpful because, like Zek, I've had to do the same thing, go through and what I do, I just pick all the props up. I just pick up all the switches and then throw a new one down to break them.
Yeah, it's the battleship claim was Albria, if I'm not mistaken, is the name. It's an amazing build, and I went and visited, and we checked it out, and I took a screenshot during content creations, and he told me the most sad thing I have ever heard. They got through 95% of the programming and the sequencing and everything to have a perfectly functional battleship game. And then between, from that night to the next night, I guess with the server bounce or whatever, when he came back to it, it's all broken. That sucks. That sucks.
I had that happen on the Mantis a couple times. I've had to go back and break a lot of links in the engine, turn things on, turn things off. Even with an all-off switch, it doesn't fix it. And that gets. I mean, I just put it on Player Studio, and on one hand, you kind of want people to maybe enjoy something like that, but on the other hand, when it's broken, I mean, and I don't want someone to buy it. You know what I mean? I have no problem going to a claim and fixing it if I'm allowed to. I do it all day long. But it's, if you're going to create a product and put it out there for sale, to me it should be is absolutely perfect. As best as you could possibly do. The mediocrity is unacceptable when it comes to someone else's money.
I gotcha, for sure. And that's something I think we just got a post recently about at least the props not migrating anymore. That
Ruds and portcullis not wandering.
I'm hoping that also means that doors will stop having off rotations and stuff. If all of that stuff is finally, a year later, finally fixed, that would be fantastic. That would really help out a lot, especially because, I had the, talking castle gate thing I was going to do, and just no, the things keep migrating between, every time I come back to it, there's no way I'm going to do this. It's going to get really annoying. Yeah, Metallica was saying the same thing. Other than a server restart the wire correctly. And but that's one of the things. Hopefully, with this next update, we'll at least have the ability to fully copy off the entire section, and then, if it's broken, repaste it and have it actually be working from the template. If we could at least be able to do that, it's a start. It's a way to at least let us put a band-aid on the problem until they've got all the systems and stuff fixed. But they might also have all of that stuff fixed in the next update. Remember, they put all of that stuff in last year, and we've only gotten a chance to, get a couple of little updates here and there, not little updates, little mini patches, but we haven't gotten the full, the big patch to fix up all of the issues that were kind of lingering from the big content update. And once we get all of those in, I'm hoping that it's going to fix all of these issues with the linking and triggering, and that nothing will ever be breaking on us again.
Yeah, that sounds like that's what's gonna happen.
I'm hoping. I really hope
All
so.
fixed and never gonna break. Yeah.
Never, ever, ever going to break again. From here on out, Landmark is perfect. No. That would be lovely. I'm sure Steve Klug would be really, really happy about that, and other people. But
Steve's wife.
I'm sure, yeah, he would be ecstatic about that. So,
Well, and I will say though that for the most part, once I've built something, once I've built something with linking and triggering, it seems to be fine. It's only when I start messing with it by picking it up or putting it down in a template or something that I seem to have the issues. Most of the server restarts haven't affected much of it. So, I mean, I can at least say that much, that if you build it and leave it alone, I think you're 99% of the time you're going to be fine.
okay.
I think it's pretty solid.
Gotcha. So, I want to ask you now, Oil, what kind of things, what kind of linking and triggering logic and systems and stuff, props and things, if this was, like I said, we're in phase 1, if phase 3 is game mastering tools going with linking and triggering, then what would you want to be seeing in phase 2 with like logic systems and updates and upgrades to the UI and all of that sort of stuff, and props and features and stuff that you would want?
I'd mirror a lot of what Zek said. We need more triggers, simply, more things that have buttons on them, normal switches. I think even making something like the current console, or little console switches, even making those interactive, if anything, just clicking on them, making them have the option of turning something on or off. But I myself would like to see a modular system where we have various types of switches that can be placed close together to look like a complete control panel. So not something with maybe a whole bunch of little cubes, that you could place side by side. Some of them could have little lights on them that you could scale down. Maybe basically a light that would not cause shadows. More like Lumicite, but a light. Something that could trigger on and off. Oh man, it's a big question. There's a lot of stuff. More prop stuff. But the thing with that is, where, at what point are we going to start making the props, and where do they stop making the props? You know what I mean? Maybe they don't want to put a lot of effort into it because ultimately they know that we're going to be making the stuff. So that's kind of tough to say.
My quick answer to that is EverQuest Next.
Yeah, true. What else? I'd like to see us have the option, or the ability at least, to trigger story bricks and triggers to the day-night cycle. So that some things can only be triggered during nighttime, or some things during daytime.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, yes. Oh, go ahead.
On top of that, and it's something that's becoming more apparent to me, most, like 90% of landmark builds look better at night. So some ability, just in general, to control day-night stuff would be fantastic. But yeah, I agree. You're absolutely right.
Well, I've been pushing, along with a lot of other people, for a space biome for a long time. Well, as long as I've been around, which isn't that long, I guess. But over New Year's Eve, Dave was telling me all the reasons why it's difficult to do a space biome right now. And they make sense, because they're thinking a lot of physics and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I remember.
So,
I was actually there for that.
Yeah. Okay. So how about an asteroid biome? I don't know how we'd solve the island thing with the water around it. Maybe, I guess you couldn't do Mercury because it might actually be solid. But maybe an asteroid, looking biome that has a permanent day side and a permanent night side. I mean, think of the moon. We always see one side of it. So let's have something that always has a dark side to it, so that if a player wants to build and be in permanent dark because stuff looks good, then allow them to do that. But also allow someone to have, if they want to build stuff that they just want in daytime, to do that as well, because I think that'll start also giving the devs data as to what players are looking for or what players are really using, not just what they're saying. It's like, 70% of our population is building at night. Maybe we should increase more night stuff or have the night cycle come more often. I mean, this is a random planet out in the middle of somewhere. I mean, there could be no moon, there could be 2 moons. Who knows? So, yeah, I'd definitely like to see more darkness, or even a perpetually dark biome. I'd be there 100% of the time.
Honestly, right now, it feels like we're between the bi-star system and just one of them's further away or something, because it never really gets dark in Landmark right now, actually.
Yeah.
It's I'm hoping that they'll kind of tune that a little bit. I'm wondering how much of that is so that way people can still kind of find their way around and see enemies coming and stuff in the distance. And I'm wondering how much more nighttime would actually affect gameplay, if that was something to consider. If it really became an issue, I bet they probably could make a few islands that are daytime only and a few islands that are nighttime only, so people that want to have their builds in those places can have that as an option.
Well, exactly. Think of it as a PvP server. If you roll on a PvP server, if you're in a game that you have levels and you're level 10, there's a potential that you're going to get ganked and killed by a high-level player, and that's just the risk you accept by rolling on a PvP server. And so I think it's the same thing if you're rolling on a night.
That actually, but
but I mean, if you're rolling on a nighttime server, that you have to accept that the mobs might be, they might kind of creep up on you, But I think some people find fun in that.
I think we don't even have to worry about that too much. I mean, in the beginning, when we first started, night, it would have been a problem, and what would we use for our light source? But we've got light stones that don't take up, one of our hands. We've got solar armor that can extend our light radius.
And actually, the last time I tried it, I've gotten up to 115 light radius, so it's even bigger now.
Yeah, so we actually start with 5 or 10 light stones. So they can go ahead and make night darker now, and we've got ways to make more light stones if that's what we want to do, or make I made a bottled moonlight potion. There's ways to get around that now. So I don't. If I was worried about, I have to carry a flashlight in one hand and a sword in another hand, then that might be a problem. But that doesn't seem to be an issue now. So I think they can go ahead and make night darker, and that should be fine. I really like the idea of having being able to use the spire to go to the moon and have a bright side and a dark side. That would be cool.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. But yeah, I definitely. It's when you get to the edge of an asteroid or whatever. That's where we would have the issues with that as a biome for right now, for sure.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily if they instead went a different direction and gave us the same stuff we have right now, but built vertically and had more like floating structures going up that we could actually claim on and do stuff with. That alone would be fantastic. And if you fall, yeah, there's a whole island for you to splatter on down there. If you don't have anything to catch your fall that you can equip in like the 30 seconds you have while you're falling to save yourself.
You know, they could just brainstorming. They could, if it was, and it's funny. I'm talking, and this is what I love about art and talking and ideas forming and reforming and maturing. I'm really talking about an asteroid. It never dawned on me that the moon, as Dygz suggested, would be a great place to port from the spire to the moon and have a permanent light side, permanent dark side. I think that's even a better idea than an asteroid. But what you could do is you could have a current island kind of like it is now, and have the art department create, where the ocean would typically start, maybe a big drop off, like it's like a big crater or something, and someplace you wouldn't want to build anyway. They could do something like that. So lots of different options, but I just, man, yeah, to be able to say, hey man, come check this out to somebody, or have somebody come to your claim and see it the way you built it. I guess that's what I'm really driving towards. And when I build stuff, I build it for its night view, because in sci-fi, you put the little microvoxel lumicite in a wall or something, and you have a nice little line. And it just works so well. Lumicite works so well if used sparingly, in sci-fi builds. And during the day, though, it just kind of goes away.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And okay, now here's a question. This is kind of getting into some weird territory. Do you think surface effects are things that we should be able to affect with linking and triggering? Like, okay, so think about being able to make water start and stop, like have it just freeze or flow based on a trigger. Having lava, solidify or basically harden for a moment in position, or flow based on using linking and triggering, or even lumicite turning on and off based on linking and triggering usage. Being able to actually kind of almost like we can do in real life. There's the basically it's like a printed array of LEDs, and you just attach a couple circuits to it. It's like a piece of paper that lights up. So is that the sort of thing that you think we should actually have the ability to do, or is that more stuff that maybe we should just wait on them to give us the ability to create areas and volumes and just do it that way? And by areas and volumes, I'm talking about like if I want to make volumetric fog without using an emitter, but just like create a box of basically, fog particle.
Well, I think a lot of that will be handled with emitters, though, and I think that's the purpose of emitters. So that's kind of a tough call. It would be cool to see, some lava like spill out of something, obviously in liquid form, and then after 15, 20 seconds, it goes hard enough that you could walk on it. That'd be kind of a cool little way to get from one point to another. I don't know.
That's funny. I hadn't thought about that, but that would be interesting.
That would be pretty awesome. Or even something where until somebody goes on the claim, the lava doesn't start flowing down out of this tiny little area, but it never gets replenished. Like the person sets it up so that way, as more people go there, more of the lava kind of pours through, and over time, maybe when the lava fills up, they come back to their claim, and it's like, okay, now you've actually forged the great, evil steel golem thing, and use linking and triggering to make a big creature out of it that then whoops everybody's ass when they try to go there. It's like they go, oh, I'm gonna go do the loot thing that everyone was doing like 3 months ago. You shall not. Boom. It's not even to finish the sentence. It's just gonna whack you. Did I use that reference twice in this show? I think I did. Whoops. Oh well. Gandalf said it once, I said it twice, whatever. So I guess not being a builder yourself, Dygz, do you have any particular opinion on the implementation of linking and triggering, how it works, how it's able to be set up? Because while you're not necessarily a builder, you are definitely going to be getting involved with the interactive storytelling process, which means you are going to have to get involved with a bit of linking and triggering with story bricks and other things. So what are some of the things that are interesting you and that you're really hoping for?
Well, I was gonna say sci-fi for me. The sci-fi I'm interested in is steampunk. So anything really steampunk related, from armor, outfits, weapons. But like you mentioned, gears. If they put gears and clockwork stuff in, I might start doing some linking and triggering. Actually, um, but um, yeah, I mean, I just haven't necessarily. It's not. I just haven't necessarily gotten back into building. I've been doing the adventuring stuff. I mean, I've done a little bit of building, um, and I think the stuff that I've done. Well, I wasn't anticipating linking and triggering at the time, um, but clockwork stuff, I can see how I would want to have some gears working. That could actually jumpstart me and take my focus away from adventuring for a moment. But I'm just literally having a lot of fun adventuring at the moment, and I would love to have more sci-fi props and especially steampunk stuff in there, just all around, environment-wise.
Yeah.
I mean, the main thing that I'm waiting to do is the stuff that I want to do is like sit down, and I'd like to be able to eat and drink stuff. um, but you know, again, for me, there's time. I'd like to see what's coming out on the 21st, and then I'm really, 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 really waiting for the update to the blueprint, just to see what's. I mean, and it's supposed to be linking and triggering and story bricks for the next few months, so hopefully we'll see a lot of that coming out.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Well, I'm also hoping to see, you know, a lot more. I mean, I'm sure we will. A lot more stuff going on with the ruins and stuff underneath the caverns, the cave system. You know, actually, you know, filling it out more, having more creatures and stuff. And that's going to be something interesting to me. Is if they're actually going to be at the point at some, you know, to make specifically sci-fi creatures rather than. I think it was maybe last week where it was maybe discussed that, or maybe it was on Theory Forge where the discussion that one way or another last week that nothing that we really have is specifically sci-fi, or specifically fantasy rather. That, you know, everything that we have kind of is pan genre. It could really work anywhere. Yeah, that's I see what you're laughing about there. And I actually kind of think really everything that we see right now, there's no reason why we aren't going to see it in EverQuest Next. So I'm wondering at what point we are going to see sci-fi creatures, sci-fi themed creatures in the world, or if that's simply going to be when Slaugs are taught how to use weapons and there's sci-fi weapons in the world, sometimes they'll have them. If it's going to be something like that. But
yeah, I mean, the current beast in game. I mean, the slogs are very sci-fi. I mean, it straight up looks like an alien. I mean, it could be like a golem type dude, I guess, as well.
It
but
is
they
Golem,
work for
yeah.
me. Yeah, but it works for me as sci-fi. The chomper works for me. The one that doesn't is the skull blob thing. What is that called?
Abomination?
Yeah, that's. I don't like those. They kind of freak me out. But I like the slogs because they always run. You put on a light thing and they just stand there and look at you, and it's kind of funny. Yeah, Dygz, they always run from me. Slogs always run. I
The
never have to fight.
abominations run. Slugs run to you.
No, slogs run away. I'm talking about the guys with arms and legs.
Do you
They run away from me.
do you do a lot of stuff in groups?
No, just myself.
Okay, because I have
And
noticed
they never.
that's one of the funnest things I've seen in a group encounter. I'll be partied up with people, I'll smack a slog in the face, and instead of coming to engage me, it'll pick somebody else that's in my party and just make a beeline towards them. It's like, no, I want to take that person on. It's like, what are you doing, moron? I'm just going to kick you in the back until you die. But okay, whatever.
Yeah,
No,
I
it-
kind
when
of.
I- Oh, go ahead, Zach.
Sorry. Just
No, you're fine. Go.
Using add-in that. Yeah, I was out with my guild leader. We were killing stuff, and I'm like, okay, well, she's digging. I'm gonna go ahead and like just kind of take this thing out. Oops, sorry, guild leader. Didn't know it was gonna aggro you. Please don't kick me. So no, not really. She wouldn't. But yeah, the mobs are different. I think I found that the abominations run away from me.
They do.
Going solo, using the bow. But I've seen other people it'll stand there. I know somebody who was attacking one with his sword near their claim. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. It just kind of stood there and just took the beating. So I don't know.
Well, what it is that I've seen is if there's any other mobs around, they try to be tactical with them. If there's other abominations around, they actually work very tactically together. One of them will be engaged with you, and then it'll start to pull away, and while it's doing that, 2 or 3 more will start to come in from the other sides, so they'll all be equidistant, shooting at you at their proper distance. So you have to then move to engage one of them, or otherwise, move from your position, or you're just stuck between a bunch of abominations. I've seen them do this. I've seen them do it to me. I've seen them do it to groups. It's actually a really cool interaction. And I feel like that's still just on the earlier end of the sorts of stuff that we're really going to see. It's pretty cool. I see there's some complaints about the abominations there. If anybody remembers the Flesh Corruptor document that I wrote in 2013, that it kind of reminds me of one of those, except when they fail the process and the potion melts them. Kind of obscure. Dygz, you might be the only person that actually knows what I'm talking about here. It was the 8th of my mega document, I believe. Yeah, it's it's a weird creature, but I think it actually fits. It seems like something. It's almost like the ugly version of the gelatinous cube creature. Instead of something that kind of stalks through the hallways and is mostly clear except a little bit of bits and stuff you might find in it. It's just an ugly puke skull pile or whatever that wants to attack you. I don't know. I think it makes sense. I think it represents affliction very well. It is the representation, the embodiment, I would say, of the affliction element in Landmark. So,
and it sounds pretty gross too.
It is.
Just
they
the
are
sound
pretty
of it is
gross.
gross. Glad we don't have smell-o-vision in yet.
I think the opportunity for smell-o-vision came and went in 2008. I was at that convention. There were only 2 of them.
But yeah, I'm really hoping. It's kind of interesting because some people were saying they don't want aliens in EQ Next, and I'm not sure. I mean, we have different worlds, and we have mobs coming in from moons and stuff. I don't know what the real difference is in terms of what a race looks like makes it alien or fantasy. Usually that's going to be determined by the gear that they have on them, what they're using. But yeah, I'm hoping that we have some sci-fi creatures coming up. I would love to see more of that. And sure, I think in the right biomes, the Chomper could feel more sci-fi. I guess maybe even in the tundra, the frozen Chompers could, but it depends on what's built around them, I guess.
Well, all you need is something that looks like a laboratory greenhouse gone bad, where there's some broken glass here and there and some weird plant overgrowth, and yeah, that's where they came from. A Frigo Porco accident. That's that's where I would expect they would come from anyway.
From his claim.
Feed me, Georgeson.
You're the reason that choppers exist.
I'm sure he is, actually. There's a good chance.
Yeah, I mean, EQ1 had a spaceship, so I don't know why we would not be expecting aliens.
Yeah, Wizardry and Might and Magic actually had alien stuff, too. Go for it, Oil.
Well, I was going to say, I think Dygz, what people... When I think of an alien, I think of Greys. I think of the typical big-eyed, like my portrait in Skype. And I think that's what people don't want to see. They don't want to see what we think of in this world as aliens. I think if they do it in-game properly with something else that's not a Grey, I think it'll be fine. Other games have done that, and people were okay with it, But I think it's just pulling something that we know of, or what we consider an alien or what we think of as an alien here. They don't want to see that, and I don't see that happening. So, hopefully everything will be cool.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I've been playing Might and Magic 6 recently, partying like it's 1998, and that's actually the story for that game, is that demon aliens had touched down on the planet, and they brought dragons with them too, apparently. So you've got like this demon and dragon army that you have to eventually overcome, and they came from space. And apparently it was part of something that's called the Mandate of Heaven, which is the name of the subtitle for the game. So, yeah, that's... Alien is just a matter of perception, really. In that game, demons are aliens, and they look pretty alien, but they're definitely demons. So, I definitely agree. And when I think about, like, the use of the ley lines and high magic and the different planes and stuff, really, everybody are aliens. Dwarves are aliens. Karens actually are from Norath. They're not aliens. Ogres, aren't they aliens too? So
they're both actually from Norath. They just discovered the spires early and traveled to other places. But those two races are. Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, there's some other races that didn't come from that area. Yeah, it's just a matter of perception, really, on that one. But I definitely agree. If the old-fashioned grays were added to Landmark, or rather EverQuest Next, definitely people would be offended. Landmark,
yeah,
I could see people maybe being taken aback by it. Eventually, when they give us the ability to actually create our own creatures and stuff, somebody's going to do it. Maybe it's not actually an animate creature, but it's going to be like the pilots and the crew and stuff, and maybe their little moving arms and stuff. And you've got your little greys. Yeah, I would see.
I want a whole army of them.
That's awesome.
I want a whole army of them.
Dave's claim would be
when you
real
open,
trouble then.
you open the hatch of the Juggernaut, and I want like 30 of them standing there waiting at
Oh, they're going to be that small? I thought they were going to, or that big rather. I figured they'd be really tiny and just have like 500 of them ready to pour out.
I don't know about that tiny. I mean, maybe to where their head comes up to your belly button in game.
Okay. Yeah,
so
I can
halfway.
see that. Yeah, very cool. All right, so that's we've kind of covered a lot of different subjects. I kind of want to go around. Is there anything in particular that we haven't discussed that any of you wanted to bring up on the show here?
I talk about this a lot, but something that again, me being new to SOE, I never played EverQuest or anything, so that's all foreign to me, and the lore is foreign to me. But I imagine that people that are coming to SOE or to Landmark for fantasy will ultimately be more fulfilled with their fantasy cravings through EverQuest Next. And so it makes me, I'm curious as to see what's going to happen in Landmark when EQN lands, as far as what the population is going to build, or what are they going to lean towards. We don't know exactly how what's the word I'm looking for? How the games are going to be connected, when they're both fully fleshed out and live. There may be a big reason to have fantasy and Landmark, but I'm just, if it was me and it was reversed and EQN was a sci-fi thing and I was in Landmark right now just to do a little bit here and there, I know I'd jump ship to the sci-fi and EQN in a heartbeat. So I can only imagine some fantasy players doing the same. But I think that leaves a big opening for the fun stuff like sci-fi, and I think that's where a lot of my promotion comes from it. But at the same time, so don't get me wrong, I heavily promote sci-fi. At the same time, though, I think that we need some of the EQN, some of the fantasy people to stay around and build, especially if they're building for EQN. So it's kind of a cycle. I don't know where it starts or where it ends. But that's something I think about a lot.
Yeah, so far the cycle seems to have been that the devs start by giving us fantasy, and after a while we'll get some sci-fi versions of stuff, and I'm kind of okay with that. But I am ready for another sci-fi dump, and I would really love to see some steampunk specifically. But more along the Tech Commander stuff, like fledge out that kind of whatever that system is. This Neuro is, by the way, why I said that I don't think the devs are really pushing for planet-side theme too much, because the Tech Commander suits don't seem to be specifically planet-side. It seems to be some other separate flavor of sci-fi. But
well, the Tech Commander stuff is it's something that was themed for Landmark, and they just had the factional colors for PlanetSide 2 applied to them, just as a single promotional item.
Yeah,
Right,
I thought it was
but,
more of just an homage.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's planet-side colors, but
Yeah.
Coffee Tea PvP was saying that, he was thinking that Landmark would be, have planet-side 2 sci-fi, and I just don't think that's a focus that they're really pushing heavily. It seems to be their own Landmark sci-fi. But I'd love to see more of the Victorian stuff. I don't know. I really do want to see more of those armor sets that had the gunslinger among them. But a little bit more sci-fi everything would kind of be nice. And we'll always be going back to fantasy. I think there is going to be that cycle of stuff coming in. So that's what makes Landmark is it's genre agnostic. So.
Yeah, and I'm with you, man. I can't wait for more steampunk stuff. Because when I think of sci-fi, I don't think of Star Trek or Star Wars or Firefly, or I mean, I think of all that stuff, but not just by itself. Cowboys and Aliens. I think of Wild Wild West. Basically anything with technological advancement that seems to be more future than what it is, or just technological advancement in itself, applied to me as sci-fi. And yeah, dude, Gears and all the stuff. I love steampunk. Absolutely love it. So that's something I want to do. I really want to do. I'm just waiting for more props. I can't make voxel gear small enough to do what I want to do. And I like a lot of embellishment and a lot of makeup or dolling, what I call dolling up in a build, to make it feel more lifelike. I want you to go into it and feel like you could live in it. Like this could be your apartment or your house or whatever, or your spaceship that you live in. And so I just need to see more of that stuff. But yeah, I'm with you on the armors, man. I can't wait to see the gunslinger. That's just cool. That's just super cool.
Yeah.
But even like a slog in a tech suit, that would be cool.
Yeah,
That would be super. Yeah, give him some little laser guns.
Yeah.
I'm a slog, man, and now I'm not running. Yeah.
that would be great if the more that would be the way they advance as you go down. Some things maybe they get bigger and beefier swords and armor and stuff. No, slogs go sci-fi, and then by the end they're like driving little laser go-kart things around or something. I don't know.
They're stealing your ships. Taking off.
H1Z1 crossover quest.
Oh man, that would be pretty funny. Oh jeez. So the thing I've been thinking about, one of my favorite genres, we on one hand have a lot of stuff already to represent it, but on the other hand, I think what would really be needed to represent it is more UI customization sort of stuff and more character specific stuff. And what I'm talking about is cyberpunk. Now we actually have a lot of stuff already to make very, very legit looking cyberpunk stuff. The only thing is maybe having like full on neon lights and signs and stuff in various different languages, but we can even get close to that with the Lumicite and the alphabets that we have. It's maybe some of the stuff we'd be able to kind of pull off in different ways, but the main thing for me beyond that is what makes cyberpunk is the the implants and the way that people are trying to represent and express themselves, not just as I'm a professional decker, therefore you're going to see my cyber deck, so I've got mine decked out with some fancy stuff on it. But people that are, it's just a fashion statement for them. It's like, yeah, I've got this cyberware that's on my head here. Yeah, it's just for fashion. It's just for looks. Yeah, I got part of my skull replaced with titanium just because I thought it looked cool. And the weird and interesting sorts of stuff that would come out of that, but that completely breaks away from what we have the capabilities for, because that means we the players would need the ability to actually change the characters themselves. I think Player Studio is still a long way away from being able to rig up that sort of stuff. So, later down the road, I would love to see that sort of stuff, and if that's the sort of stuff we'd be able to do when we can actually convert voxels to mesh and, kind of make props of them, as actually being able to use them as attach points and put them on the body in different ways, that would be amazing. But then the other half of the cyberpunk sort of thing is the interface. For me, it's just, if I could take the look of the game and make it look more like the Matrix. And when I say the Matrix, I mean the Matrix from Shadowrun, not Keanu Reeves. That would be lovely. Making it look more like a digital interface. That, to me, would be just such a really nice way to kind of break out of the, it's not a fantasy game, but it's, got the basis of a fantasy game because of the equipment and stuff, and really help me say, like, yeah, I'm playing a steampunk or a cyberpunk game rather, and I'm, that's what I'm about right now. Maybe it's just on my own claim, but wherever, that's what I'm up to. I can have full immersion going. To me, that's super exciting. I really don't know how far down the road that's going to be. But
they could start some of that stuff even just with having some of the accessories be implants instead of rings, even if we can't even see them yet. The curious thing for me is what a cyberdeck weapon would be like. What kind of abilities would that have? And then I think the interface, like jacking into the net, would be a whole thing that would probably have to happen on Acclaim. But there's some stuff they could start doing with that already, just by having different types of accessories that aren't what we typically think of fantasy accessories, like rings.
And something I wanted to bring up really quick, and this is for me, it's a segue, and this is a bit off topic currently, but this goes back to the prop thing. But you had hit on a couple things, Neuro, with the cyberpunk and the neon and stuff, and it made me think, or jog my mind. But signage, we need signage in game.
Yeah.
I mean, little signs, power buttons. I need to be able to spell out and make words. I do graphic design, and so that's really big for me. Fonts, you've seen the different fonts I've tried to make for the different ships, and I'll continue to do that. But I really want signage that just seems to really bring a world alive, and you can walk up to something and read, up, down, this is an elevator, whatever it may be. I think it really helps point direction.
I've actually been hoping for runes. I want a landmark rune system that's basically the same thing. We can create it's not just a plaque, but just we can put up on walls or whatever and spell things out with dwarven runes or alien runes or Karen runes, whatever. Somebody's got to use some kind of runic alphabet. So all of that, would be great. A few different types of alphabets, because it was nice to have those. We do have the landmark font as a a landmark font as a template.
Yeah.
The little templates we got, and something like that with runes would be great.
Yeah, I just want something
yes,
on a much smaller scale.
Versus ruins, by the way.
Yes. Yeah, on a smaller scale.
On a smaller scale, and then also something, especially for sci-fi, that lights up without casting shadows. Again, so kind of like a Lumicite thing, but something that you can see a little bit brighter during the day. Or Trigger, or Lincoln Trigger.
I mean, I would be happy with just an in-game word processor. That alone, just let me put a few words in, change the color of it, make it italicized, give it a little background. I could make a race car with that. That's fantastic.
Player editable books. That would be fantastic. Because you can make them like really low, like an EQ2. So you can just do all kinds of things. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be a big deal. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a big piece of implementation. I mean, we've got. I jokingly I say, well, we've got character names in the world, so clearly they can draw, text in the world. And no, it's a completely different system. And being Forge Light, it's not like Unity where I can say, like, oh, well, they only need to do this, this, and this. It's yeah. So what is it, Tim? Yeah, making an i7 processor. Nice.
I'll be right back.
Very cool. All right. Geez, so we've been going for an hour and a half, and I guess want to open it up to either of you if you have anything else that you wanted to bring up on the show here. Was there anything in particular, anything we haven't covered yet? Anything is like, this is what I need to talk about on the Rant show? Anything?
No, especially since I'm trying to think of what's been going on in the forums, and I think a lot of it has been more EQ Next this week than Landmark, and we've been pretty much focused on Landmark. I'm just excited about, I don't know, adventuring. I will say one thing, we kind of have not been mentioning Loot Cave much, but I spent time in the Loot Cave last weekend, and when I woke up in the morning, it was really nice because there's a whole community method of bringing people over to chests and shooting your arrow or shooting off your weapon to let you know that let other people know you're near a chest and wait for them to come over to open it. So there's a nice community bonding from that exploit. And it made me feel so kumbaya that people were working together, and it was nice to see people from the forums working together as a community. And then this week, I didn't go into the loot cave, but someone was selling their loot for 12k ether shards, like a chest of loot for 12k ether shards for free stuff. So it takes them 10 minutes to pick up enough loot to make a chest, and it takes probably 2 or 3 hours to get 12k ether shards. But the newbies don't know that. The newbies don't know about the loot cave. So that kind of just demoralized my thinking of humanity as, being altruistic, because this person is exploitative, literally. I'm going to take this exploit, build up a bunch of loot in 10 minutes, and then sell it to somebody else for 2 hours of their work. People.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I've just been enjoying it's just been so much more fun for me actually being able to go out and adventure and go through progression, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Hey Dygz, when we get some gears, man, let's do a steampunk build together.
Yeah.
Sure.
It sounds like a lot of fun. That would be pretty awesome. I wonder when that's going to be. Yeah, everybody, Loot Cave. That's right. There's a thing called the Loot Cave. If you're not familiar with it, welcome to 3 weeks ago. I'm sure it's already been reported, but it's funny. It's hilarious, and it almost feels like a bonus bonanza sort of thing. It's like you find it. That's awesome. For the next hour or two, everybody can cash in on it. But it's, like I said, we haven't had a major update or patch or anything since the giant content release went through. So we've had a few patches here and there, little ones, but I would imagine Loot Cave is probably a consideration for the next major patch update.
I would think so too.
Maybe, Cannon. What are you talking about? You think I wouldn't build a steampunk ruin? I'd build a steampunk ruin. You're just being ridiculous. You're just saying words right now. Of course I would build a steampunk ruin. I love steampunk. Not as much as cyberpunk, but steampunk's pretty awesome. I guess for me, if you give me everything steampunk except the Victorian mentality, it's totally cool for me. It's the Victorian stuff that kind of makes it a little weird for me.
But you know, think of the Western steampunk though. I mean, like the old Wild Wild West show. That was like probably my earliest introduction to it. And that's, although the Victorian aspect of it is what it seems like the rest of the steampunk community is really bought into. I still very much think of the Western, you know, Wild Wild West as steampunk. I mean,
Yeah, actually,
that's just cool.
I
That's
agree
just
with
super
you
cool.
there. Yeah, actually, that does make a lot more sense. Wild West does make sense, a lot more sense for the setting for it, because it's a lot more like, you know, profiteers and people trying new and weird, crazy things. So it may have started off as an attempt at some sort of mining machinery, and then ended up it's like, well, we can make the mechanical legs walk, but we can't really have it carry anything except like a couple of guns. Oh, great! Well, we'll just attach guns to it and use it to subjugate people. You know,
Yeah, and really, I mean, just it's the Steam thing comes from the Steam era, regardless of whether it was United States, Wild Wild West, or whether it was Europe, Victorian type stuff. You know what I mean? And so it's using Steam to make a machine work, and it's so the Victorian to me is just a genre of it. But yeah, I don't. And it's kind
Well,
of the
it's
same
in
with
that
Cyberpunk.
time period, and that covers Western. It's
Yeah.
I mean, that
It's
covers
yeah,
the same
it's all of
period of
it.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Someone brought up, I think the show was actually Briscoe County Junior. Was the name of it? Briscoe County, or was that the character's name? That was a show. Oh shoot, when was that? In the 90s. It was in the 90s, but when? It was basically a Wild West. It had like some steampunk elements to it. It had some really sci-fi sorts of stuff later on in the show. I'm not going to say in case anybody's actually curious, because it actually would be kind of a spoiler. It is actually worth watching. It actually had really good production value to it, you know, for the 90s. So definitely a good reference and something good to watch if you're interested in that sort of thing. Good for reference for sure. For
Well,
sure.
and what was that movie with Yul Brynner, like from the 60s or 70s, where he's a cowboy but he's like a cyborg or something?
That one, now you're showing how much older than me you are. No, I'm kidding. But no, I'm not actually familiar with that one. That sounds really interesting.
Well, and that's what I was saying. When I keep saying the Wild Wild West, I'm not referring to the Wild Wild West. I'm referring to the old TV show, the
Okay.
60s TV. Yeah, you look that up. I mean, 'cause that was-
Westworld. Thank you, everybody.
Westworld, yes.
I'll have to check that out.
But look at that in the old Wild Wild West TV show, or even the movie that Will Smith made, which was based on the old TV show. As bad as it was, I mean, there's your steampunk, you know? I thought it was good.
Yeah, it wasn't very good. There were some enjoyable concepts to it, but no. Anyway,
well,
yeah.
especially for the people who weren't around when it was on.
That wasn't directed at me, was it?
I don't think I was around
This
when
is
it was
way
on, so.
this is way off topic, but when I was working at Activision, for a while I had roommates that were from Activision, coworkers that were 12 years younger than I am, and they were big into Star Wars and did not understand why anybody would watch original Star Trek because it was so cheesy, the special effects. And I'm like, if you understood what the special effects were like at the time, you'd get it. But if what you grew up, if your first introduction to sci-fi was Star Wars, then yeah, you probably wouldn't be able to deal with original Star Trek special effects.
The older I've gotten, the more I've realized like the Star Trek versus Star Wars is such a completely different thing, because Star Wars, that's a you know, basically a civil war in you know, galactic proportions or whatever, versus Star Trek. This is, you know, humanity, the civilization of Earth has already solved everything that it needs to. Disease has been solved, hunger has been solved, you know, money, you know, currency and all of that stuff's been solved, you know, substance abuse, everything's been solved, every problem's been solved, climate control has been established, whatever, you know, they've got everything on lockdown. to the point where the only thing left to do is to travel the stars. It is to go out there. And so that's completely, it's a diplomatic adventure versus a galactic civil war. It's a completely different sort of thing. You know, the more recent reboot of Star Trek kind of made me feel a little weird, because like, well, this is, yeah, I know there were the Romulans and everything, and you know, there's some beef that was going down, and, you know, Borgs and stuff, but that's galactic civil war between, you know, humans and other people versus humans and other people is completely different than, like, you know, the Federation versus, you know, all the threats in the universe that they come across. And not really setting out to go fight them. They're not going to send a fleet to go try to take out the Borg. Hell no. That's a losing battle right there. You're just going to feed them.
Only thing that hadn't been solved yet in the Star Trek universe was gender equality.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I guess maybe some of the laws and rules for like robots and robot rights and, you know, what is humanity and stuff like that. You know, given the time that, you know, the bulk of the series was made, that's, you know, that's almost the least of the things. I mean, that's it came with the times. Like, if you're going to make something in the 60s, that's how the people are going to be dressed. You know.
That's true.
Tribbles. All right, so let's I guess continue. I'm going to continue asking, is there anything that we have not brought up that you'd like to bring up? If not, then I'm going to probably open it up to Q&A here.
Bring back Firefly.
Okay. Is that a plan for Landmark? Are you going to make the ship at Landmark?
You know, one of my rules, because I do design in real life, but it's not cool to take someone else's property, bottom line. It's cool to get inspiration from it and maybe use some ideas and make it your own thing, but it's not cool to straight up make someone else's IP. And so I'm a big stickler for staying away from that. But if you look at my builds closely, you can see the Star Wars reference. You can see the Serenity reference, especially in the Juggernaut. So, yeah, I mean, it would be cool to, no question, but out of respect to that property, I just stay away from it. I use it as heavy inspiration.
Oh, sorry. I was, honestly, now that I'm not going to do it, it's okay that I say it, but I have thought it would be really cool if I used a flux capacitor as a power source that's somewhere in my build. But I was like, yeah, that's kind of IP infringement. Let's not go there. But I could do something different that was kind of based on the inspiration, yeah.
Yeah. As long as you, I mean, the inspiration is fine. It's just don't make a copy. I mean, you don't want to put them side by side and go, yeah, that pretty much looks the same. That's when things get kind of bad. And we don't. I mean, I think as the players in the game, we owe a respect to Sony and SOE and Dave and Emily and everybody, you know, that we stay away from that stuff so that it keeps them out of hot water. And the cooler the community is about it, then the more freedom we can earn.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird subject because on the other end, you know, people who want to pay homage to things that exist, that they love something so much that they'd like to bring it to another place where it doesn't exist and make it available to everybody. So that there's kind of the different side. Like if somebody made the classic X-wing or a modern X-wing or something and was able to actually make it semi-realistic and semi-believable. On one hand, yeah, you couldn't sell that on Player Studio. It couldn't be monetized, and wouldn't be able to be used for any like official events of any sort. But on the other hand, the not only the technical mastery of being able to complete something like that, but the attention to detail for someone who really cares about that sort of stuff, what things they're going to focus on and how they do it. Because it's not going to be a one-for-one replica, it's kind of an expression of themselves and how they feel the best way to represent things are to try to take this very complex thing and represent it in a format where you can't necessarily do everything one-to-one. So I definitely agree with you that like there's making something original. If you're trying to make something original because you want to make something cool and awesome, definitely, original is the way to go. If you want to pay homage to something, if there's specifically something you want to honor. I made a the bigger fish, the Big Bertha fish or whatever from Mario 3, just a Lumicite pixel version. It's it's cute. People know what it is. You can recognize it from a distance. And I had it up at Poro's aquarium. It was actually really funny because she was close enough to the spire that when you zone in, because of the LOD at the time, it actually looked like the smaller fish until you got closer, and then it looked like the bigger. It's really funny the way that worked. So it almost perfectly too. So but I did that to pay homage. I'm not planning to make that creature in the game, and that creature itself, it has movement to it. It's not made of voxels, it's made of pixels. So even on that, there's points of argument and legal stuff to have to you can not have to worry about as much. But at the same time, there is definitely the fact that if you do something that is a full-on IP violation, it does potentially open up the gates. Not necessarily that, a cease and desist or like, Capcom's going to sue somebody for having a Mega Man in the game. But, they might ask, hey, could you, limit your people trying to do that sort of stuff if it really became an issue. Honestly, other than Disney, I would imagine every game that has a Mega Man in it, Capcom loves that. The makers is like, oh man, my characters show up in another game. That's so cool. They're not going to be like, oh, they used our likeness. It's a weird sort of thing. I definitely agree with you though that in order to avoid gray area, it is definitely good to go with a variation but not a complete replica.
Well, and that's kind of my thing behind it. I mean, I'm all for paying an homage to the people that inspire you. I mean, I do some stuff with marker or even acrylic. I'll paint straight up stuff from the 70s Go Nagi stuff. Mazinger Z, Great Mazinger, straight up. I mean, I just straight up copy it because it's just cool. It's the coolest thing ever made. But that's for me though, and I show friends and people that want to see it, but it doesn't leave here. My thing about just not building stuff in game that's someone else's IP is just simply it's just simply out of respect for to Sony, really, and yeah, I agree with you. In a cool world, everybody be like Capcom and be like, all this is really doing is it's advertising for us. Now maybe they'll go see Star Wars, but then you do have the people like Disney, or companies like Disney that they want a really tight grasp on things, and that's their stuff. So hey, but I just want to make sure SOE is cool because I love Landmark and I want it to be around.
Yeah.
Yep.
I wonder if anybody's ever gotten sued for having a tattoo of Mickey Mouse, or like a cease and desist or something. Because I wonder because that kind of treads some weird territory. Because like, that's that's my likeness. I'm gonna sue you. Yeah, that's my chest, buddy. You can, it's a weird. I'm not even gonna talk about it anymore. This is a legal discussion. Yeah, let's
remove that tattoo. Take that chest off.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. Maybe if they're making money off, you're right about that, Kappas. I suppose maybe, but gray area. Anyway, let's keep it back on get it back on the subject of Landmark in particular here. So we do have maybe about 15 minutes here. Well, maybe about 10 minutes before we get into the final wrap ups here. So there's I guess the thing that I've kind of been wondering or kind of interested in is with all of this, and I'm not trying to make any accusations or anything here, is with all of the interest going into linking and triggering, I'm wondering if that's going to kind of not necessarily give leverage to de-emphasize, combat, but if there's going to be more focus of the team put towards the linking and triggering stuff where possible, rather than focusing on improving the combat systems, or if neither one of them, there's people that are assigned to them, but the bulk of the team is assigned to completely other stuff, like getting mounts and stuff working in a few months, because I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that's in the works that's, quick iteration that'll be done soon. And there's a lot of stuff in the works that it's like, yeah, man, just got to give me like 3 solid months and I'll totally work this out and it'll be perfect. Like, it kind of felt like that with water. It was like, I think they even described it as such, as like they kind of sometimes have somebody kind of go off on their own and they'll come back in like a month with a working system that's totally awesome. And then it gets integrated with everything. So, without rambling too much more and actually turning it into a subject of discussion, do you think that the fact that linking and triggering is starting to come into such a focus means that other parts of the project are going to be not necessarily de-emphasized, but maybe put on hold a little bit while more of that stuff goes in?
I think maybe on a small scale. I mean, the people that are doing linking and triggering for the most part are people who like to build, and I mean, in some cases they already had the system set up, just waiting for it in a way. Just about anything I've made was kind of set up that way. That when one day hopefully I could use a trigger to tell this to do this. So I mean, I wasn't really spending much in combat before it, and I'm not spending much combat after it, so it's kind of the same for me. And I'd have to imagine it might be the case for a lot of people.
I gotcha.
I'm expecting it to be very similar to what we saw with building and what we've seen the whole time. They will be focused on linking and triggering in the game mastering tools, but each update will probably have more weapons, more armor, more materials for builders, more props, and there'll be bug fixing along the way. So I don't think the focus on linking and triggering in game mastering tools is going to be much different than we've seen them do throughout the year. Mounts is kind of interesting because I don't recall ever seeing a month that mounts were due to come out. It seemed like, it got put on the blueprint as something that would come somewhere, but I don't remember seeing a month where we were expected to see those come out. I'm not expecting that to be a focus anytime soon.
Gotcha. Zach, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, I kind of agree there. I think that it's kind of like, oh, look what we can do now, and people will run with it for a while, but I don't think it will long-term wise take away from other features to see it go further. I can't see that happening. Honestly, I'm running around and I'm like, I need more, I don't know, agate, because that's just what I can think of. And then I say, oh, look, there's a chomper. I need to kill it. And then next thing I know, I'm totally doing something entirely different than what I meant to do when I logged in. It's just shiny. Let's go. Yeah, let's go see what that's all about. It's like every time, and it's been like that for months. So I can't really see long-term wise now. I don't think it's going to take away from the features. Though that said, kind of what I think would really help things is a better balance on ether shard costs of things, because it's not fun.
Yeah,
that way. Nice.
I don't think that they necessarily haven't balanced anything, or they've refused to balance anything, but I don't think they've really sat down and done a full balancing pass on what all needs to cost what, and more specifically, for basically the past month here, kind of seeing what things are getting used more, what things are getting used less, where it's being generated, where it's being consumed, and how many people are using the respawn tokens, and that sort of stuff, and being able to hopefully balance things a lot more appropriately when they do a pass on it. But right now, combat stuff, costs of things with the ether shards, there's a lot of stuff that they just put it in because it was functional enough, and the numbers, at least were semi-representative of what things were. But in no way is any of the cost of anything final, and I'm really happy about that. There's still definitely a long way to go with a lot of that stuff, and it could always change at any moment. That's one of the things to keep in mind with Landmark and also with EverQuest Next. There's a lot of things that are being decided on that could change week to week due to technical constraints, due to new developments, due to discussion, due to Dave having an epiphany in the bathtub and realize, that's why we have to do something the way we have to do it. And I'm sure he would raise his finger and be excited like that, but with the big wide-eyed stare that Dave has was he's excited because he's an excitable guy. He's awesome, by the way. If anybody didn't get a chance to see the New Year's stuff, if it's still up, check that out. Not only the in-game stuff, but also the kind of New Year's ball drop celebration stuff. Fun times for all. So on that note, I think it's about ready to start wrapping things up. So I want to make sure everybody has enough time to let everybody know what you're up to here. So I'm going to do kind of the same order as before, the counterclockwise, starting from Zekseidu. I said it right this time, right?
Yes.
All right.
I'm Zekseidu. Someday I'd like to stream, but it's probably not going to happen anytime soon. You can find me on Twitter, the same name. I play a lot of SOE games. I go by Zekseidu in all SOE games that I play and a couple others. I do a lot of building, but I'm quiet about it because I haven't built anything that I think is awesome yet until the sci-fi. Beyond that, hit me up with questions, friend me in game. I'm always open for stuff, and check out militarygamers.com.
For sure, and that's Military Gamers does stuff across all of SOE's games and beyond, right?
Yes, multi-platform, multi-game. It's very widespread, very huge. If you play it, we're probably in it.
Yeah. And you folks are, you always make a presence at SOE
Yeah.
Live, right?
Pretty sure, yeah. I mean, I'm new just in. I'm in the Landmark branch of Military Gamers. I haven't officially in any of the other games yet, but Military Gamers loves SOE. I can say that much, yes.
Okay. 'Cause I feel like they had a panel and stuff at when it finally became SOE Live in 2012, and kind of with the Planet Side 2 stuff coming in, so maybe they had been apart before that, but I definitely know that they started making a presence then. So yeah, for sure, if you're in or interested in, or I don't know, I'm not the person to advertise it, but yeah, it's if you have any interest in Military Gamers, definitely check them out. Zek, if you wanted to post the link, that would be fantastic, so people could find their way there. And
yep, sure. And if you're in Landmark and you're interested, hit me up with a PM. I've got invite privileges.
There you go. Yeah. I was saying, it's like, wait, how am I supposed to promote this? Screw it. I promote stuff all day. It's like I just know a little bit about it. I just speak out like I know everything. Is Military Gamers I'm actually not as familiar with, to be perfectly honest. So I really need to check in a little bit more and learn more about him, check more about him, because I've definitely seen him around and not going anywhere anytime soon for sure. All right, Oil then. How about you?
So yeah, I'm Oil. I pretty much only play Landmark. That's it. So if I'm playing, I'm in Landmark. Either that or working or eating. But so basically, the way it works with me is I love sci-fi. You know that. Linking and triggering is super cool. I'm really happy with the implementation of it. If anybody ever has any question on linking and triggering or needs some tips on simple voxelmancy stuff, I know some simple stuff that I learned from Tenma. He's really the guy to go to, I think, though. Man, hit me up in game. I'll come to your claim. You can come to mine. We'll set up a place where we can work together, and I'll show you what I know. I also did some teacher aiding stuff in school, so I will give you my best to help you push those creative urges you might have or help develop them. Everybody can be an artist. It's something you can learn. Don't let people think that. First of all, the whole right brain, left brain thing, it's a fallacy.
Yeah.
It doesn't really work that way. Yeah, it's bull. Anybody can learn it, and if you are not feeling overly creative, I can give you some pointers or things to help you with that, and make it okay. And let's all make a cool, fun game.
For sure, for sure. Yeah. You know, I'm a terrible drafting artist. I got a degree in a bachelor's in animation. I still can't hand draw worth of crap. But in Landmark, I can do some pretty cool stuff. So don't be discouraged if one media doesn't work for you. There's a lot of ways to do art out there, and something will click. I guarantee it. Dygz, why don't you let people know about all your exploits here?
I am almost always in the forums, but I am taking time out to play several times a week, Landmark. And I'm kind of focusing on the crafting end, and really looking right now at newbie progression. So I'm kind of interested in making sure that I have a couple of extra bows around and handy so that newbies aren't stuck with the adventurer's blade. I think we need to start newbies off with a larger range of weapons than just one weapon. But
I like the adventurer's blade.
I like it too, but not everybody wants to be a melee person. Ranged people should get some love with a one ability weapon too.
You have to earn your guns.
But yeah, so I think I'm thinking about focusing on crafting stuff to help out with to hand out to newbies to kind of help their newbie experience. That's kind of what I'm focused on right now, newbie progression.
Very cool. Very cool. That's awesome. Yeah,
that's very cool.
All right, so that wraps things up, and of course I am Legendary Neurotox, and I am here at this show and many shows throughout the week on this channel. Live Feature Rant, Dead Feature Rant. We're going to be doing Theory Forge on Friday. Dygz is also a part of Theory Forge, so you'll see him again there. Nice Homer Simpson, Kappas, thank you. We've got Dead Feature Rant for H1Z1. By the way, H1Z1 hits tomorrow, so if you like zombies and you like surviving, definitely check it out. And Content and Creations every Sunday from 1 to 5 p.m. Formerly Castles and Crap Shacks, but there haven't been Crap Shacks for a long time, so that name was totally invalid. And before we go, we're going to be bringing this party to our friends, Landmark Explorers. They're through here a little bit earlier, and we're going to be bringing that party over there for some more awesome Landmark action. See you all there. Later.